Welcome, everybody. This is episode 4 of Why Mythras. Today, we're going to be talking about our skills, how to roll them, and how does sports roleplay, as we always do. We'll give everybody a little time to roll in, I guess. Or it might be a quiet day. That's okay.
Jump in now.
Yeah, we usually have a peanut gallery, but that's all right. I'll just start. So skills means what can you do? It's the things that your character can do. And there will be 4 subsections that we'll get into: how the skills work, different situations. We'll explain that. Standard skills and professional skills. I should have had you start. This is my slide. Anyway. So how do skills work? They define what your character can do. We've already discussed creating your character, like their career and their culture and how that influences their skills, what skills they have and how good they are at them. Now we're thinking about what the skills actually are and what they do. So a skill ranges from 0 to 100 or higher. Hey, Bacon. It can go over 100. There's no limit, but if you put 1,000, have a stat block with 1,000, you're probably not playing the game right. But generally 0 to 100, and the goal, what you're doing is rolling 2 or equal to or under your skill. If I've got a 66, then I want to roll 66 or under to succeed at that skill. Pretty simple. You know what? I'm going to turn the music down just a bit. It's distracting me a little bit.
I was just asking the chat how the music volume was. They're going to revolt until you turn it back up.
Sub G-Funk. So there's 4. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. I guess you call them states. I don't know.
Levels of success, I guess.
Levels of success. Thank you. Critical, success, failure, and fumble. So success and failure, everyone's pretty familiar with that. Criticals and fumbles. The book says it's up to the GM to define what those look like. We advocate for players role-playing those themselves. Of course, you can do it either way. There are some skill rolls that are automatic. You just wouldn't roll. In the case of like something that's routine, or the book even says like not dramatic, or you have enough time, or you have the tools to do it, where there's not really any realistic reason you should fail, that would just be an automatic success. You wouldn't roll it. You would roll when something's at stake, when there's a consequence. Yeah, and then modifying skills. So we've got levels of difficulty. By default, everything is standard. It's not the GM won't always be like DC 12 or this will be challenging or whatever. By default, you just roll your skill. It's usually standard. If I have 88, I roll and try to get 88 or under. If the GM says hard, then I'm going to change the number that I'm trying to roll under. So the simplified version of this is it changes the number you're trying to roll under by 20. So if I have a 50 and it's easy, I go to 70. If I have a 50 and it's hard, it goes to 30. That's the simplified way. The default way is multipliers. Like if it's hard, it goes to 2/3 of your skill. If it's formidable, it goes to half of your skill. Some prefer the simplified way because it's faster. But the multiplying way doesn't have to stop the game because it's a calculation. As one, you can have the calculations done before your game. You can have them on your sheet, or you can have an auto-calculating sheet, which is fantastic. So you're not having to stop the game. Oh, what is my skill times 2/3? It's already there on your sheet. And I didn't explain what the actual difficulty grades are. You've got automatic, very easy, standard, hard, formidable, Herculean, and hopeless. That sounds like a lot, but it's not. So automatic and hopeless. Automatic means no roll required. Hopeless means no roll can be made. As I said, standard is in the middle. You got easy and very easy. On the other end, you've got hard, formidable, Herculean. There are the book lists some, what would you call them? Difficulties.
Some situations.
Situations, yeah, thank you. Some situations, and they have a difficulty grade assigned to them. So fighting while like prone, like I'm laying on my back and the pressure's against me, that would be formidable. It's almost impossible to fight while I'm laying down on my back. Certain situations might be hard, some might be formidable, some might be easy. And that's usually how it is. In rarer cases, instead of saying this situation is hard, it will say this situation is 1 grade harder or 1 grade easier. By default, it doesn't do that because it's you don't want to be worried about stacking bonuses or penalties. It's just whatever the greatest penalty is, you take that. Simple. But the game is very well designed, and those situations where it does shift, it makes sense for it to be that way. Such as, for example, like firing an arrow at an extended range. Whatever difficulty that would normally be, it's 1 grade harder. Okay. That's probably a very long way of explaining that, but anything you would like to add for that?
I would just say that the examples given in the book, that for like you were saying, fighting while prone, being formidable, those of course are examples, and it's always up to the GM to decide. Okay, yes,
yep,
that's normally the case, but maybe there's some other some reason that it might be a little bit different, just like any other game. I really like the fact that it's roll under, so the player always knows what their goal is. They don't need to wait for the GM to tell them success or failure. They already know.
No back and forth.
No back and forth. And the fact that since it's roll under, all the calculations can be done ahead of time.
Yes.
I think people don't realize just that small amount of addition and sometimes subtraction, but addition's usually what games go for. Having to do that every single time you roll, even if you only roll a couple times per game, it's surprising how much it slows the game down.
Yeah. I do find it interesting because it's seen as the more crunchy game, which sure it is. But like you said, you do your calculations before the game starts. So you just roll, you look, and there's your answer.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of other games you're adding +3, +5 every single time, and I don't know why that's seen as simpler, because it's not. And like, it's simple arithmetic, but even that can become taxing over the course of a 2-3 hour game, you know.
People keep telling me it's simple arithmetic, and I still keep seeing people be like, well, +3, what would that be? So,
Yeah.
whatever. It is what it is. It's just one of the reasons why Mythras is better for roleplay.
Yep. Okay. I'll finally let you get to your slides, sir.
Oh, no problem. So those are the main ways that a game master would modify the rules, but there are other situations. The book does mention reattempting skills, and it's something seen as, okay, the game master can be nice and do this. They don't have to. They advise the game master, you can make it 1 degree harder, and then if that doesn't work, they're out of luck. I was trying to think about it. I was like, well, I don't know if I would ever let someone reattempt a skill, but on the other hand, maybe sometimes it makes sense. Very rare. I like that there's an option there in the game, and any game master can decide how often or not often they use that. Much more useful to me is augmenting skills. So, when you augment a skill, you use a secondary skill in order to increase your chances of succeeding with your primary skill. Something like, you're rolling athletics to escape someone chasing you, but you know this terrain much better, so you can augment using your locale, right? And so you would just take 20% of your locale skill and you would add it to your primary skill. Now, I hear what you're saying. You were just saying that adding and subtracting slowed the game down. What are you doing? And I will say, that's true. Adding and subtracting does slow the game down. I would highly recommend people, if you're going to be augmenting skills, have a calculator ready, or even better, there's a auto-calculating sheet for Mythras. It's just a Google sheet, really, but it's very useful. It'll calculate for you following all the rules. Although that does bring up a point of debate in the Mythras community. As Elf Hunter was discussing, there's 2 ways to modify skills. There's the simple way, which most people will use the simple way if they're at the table, the adding and subtracting 20%, because it's simpler, it's easier. But if you like me, you have the auto-calculating sheet, or you just calculate everything beforehand. You like the multiplication, right? But then if you multiply, then the order of operations starts to matter. For example, let's say you're rolling a formidable check. That's minus 50%. But is that 50%? Sorry, not minus 50%. It's multiplying by 50%. But is that 50% multiplication before or after I add my augmenting skill? I am here to say it should be added after. The reason being, I enjoy it when augmenting skills, they come through in the clutch moments when no one knows if it's even possible to succeed. For example, I was talking to Elf Hunter earlier. Imagine you're trying to escape certain doom and you're trapped in a room. Well, maybe your character skill in architecture, so they can look around and say, wait a minute, I know how these kinds of rooms are built. I know that certain sections of these walls are essentially hollow. And so you can roll your evade augmented by your architecture skill. And if you succeed, you're able to just, even though you're not super strong, you're able to aim just right, to just careen right through that hollow wall that's essentially just thin paper. I love that option. If you add the augmenting skill before the multiplication, then that 20% of all your augmenting skill essentially just becomes 10%, and that gets like really smushed down, especially the more difficult the situation becomes. A Herculean check is you only have 90%, or sorry, it's reduced by 90%. A little gain going on in the mic. I see that, G-Funk. Let me go. I'm experimenting with some effects.
It was perfect before stream, and but now that we're streaming, of course.
How's this? Is it better or worse? I'm just going to assume it's better. Anyways, going on. So I advocate for 20%, the 20% being added after the difficulty modifiers. Continuing on, we have sorry, go ahead.
By default, it's before, correct?
By default, nobody knows. It's not technically in the rules. That's why people are arguing about it.
Okay. Okay.
There is no default. It's of course, if you're using the simple plus 20 minus 20, then it doesn't matter because you're just adding multiple times.
Yeah.
Anyways, there's also capping skills. This is a great way to make sure, okay, somebody is doing something that they're usually really good at, but because of the circumstance, another skill is going to hold them back. For example, let's say you're trying to fire an arrow, a bow and arrow, but you're also on a horse. Well, you may be very good with a bow and arrow, but you're not that great of a horse rider, so your combat style will be capped by your riding skill. Of course, maybe you're like a Mongolian archer. In that case, you can have something where it does not cap your riding skill. It's like, oh well, the whole thing is like I ride horses and fire arrows, right?
Yeah.
There's some things like that.
That'd be a trait.
Yes, a combat style trait. There's also things such as, different situations GMs can come across. It's really up to you. One common one is if you're fighting on kind of shaky ground, you might cap some skills that have to do with physical movement. You might cap it with athletics or even evade because of the shaky ground. Anyways, moving on. We have the contested roles. And I love that Mythras, they have 2 contested roles. One is more common. The other one, I don't think I've seen it in another game system. But we'll go over the first one for the opposed role. Very simple. We take those 4 levels of success that we had earlier. We had the critical, success, failure, and fumble. And you both roll and you just look, okay, who got better? If one person got a success, one got a failure, easily we know the person who got a success is the better off. But what if you both roll the exact same? What if you both got a success? In that case, it's blackjack rules. The only time you want to roll high in a Mythras or a BRP system is when you both tied. In Mythras, if I roll a 51 and I succeed, and you roll a 52 and succeed, well, you succeeded better than me, so that you win that tie. I really enjoyed this version of the rules because in games like Call of Cthulhu, they have it, depending on the situation, tie goes either to the attacker or to the defender. But if you have it the way that Mythras has it, then the person more likely to win the ties is the person who has the higher skill level. If I have an 80 in my, let's just say, I'm not even going to use the real skills. If I have an 80 in lying and you have a 20 in truth discerning or something like that, right? Then even if you roll a maximum success of 20, I still have a very good chance of lying to you, right? I really enjoy that tie-breaking philosophy. It just makes more sense. Of course, there are games that just make it, they want to make sure the person doing something wins most of the time, so they say the attacker gets the benefit of the doubt on any tie breaks. That's one way to do it, but it's a skill-based game. I think the skill level should be the deciding factor. And now, last but not least, we hear this is the last way that you can sort of work the roles, really GM facing, is these group roles. Let's say you're a GM and you're like me, you're lazy. You don't want to be rolling for each and every single one of these darn NPCs, right?
Yeah.
And not only laziness, but also you're trying to keep the game running, right? We're talking about how these rules help support roleplay. One of the ways that roleplay can really fall apart is if the GM is there like, let me roll for this guy. Okay, let me roll for this guy. Okay, like slows the game down. So the first is the team roll. This is when, and really I think most of us do this instinctively, but it's nice that this is written down in the rules to say, hey GMs, these are some things that you should know about that you can be equipped when the game comes and when these decisions have to be made. Team role is very simple. If it's a situation where if one person succeeds, then of course they would share that information with the rest. The example given is that someone's trying to hide. If one group of the posse is looking for them and finds them, they're going to call out, right? So really only one of them has to succeed. And so you just roll with the highest skill level of the group. Very simple. And then same for failure, right? So if you're all trying to sneak and the to use a D&D-ism, the paladin in heavy plate armor with his disadvantage on that, right? He fails. Well, the alarm's going to be sounded no matter what, right? So that's how that team roll works. Next one is the sorting roll. If you have a group, but they all have different levels in a certain skill, the example given in the book is they're running away on some horses. So they roll their riding skill, and you roll, say, a 49. Well, everyone who has a skill higher than 49, if they have like a 50, a 60, whatever, well, they're going to go ahead and succeed on that roll. And everyone who has a skill lower than that, they're going to fail on that roll. Very simple. I do like that there's a sort of an aside given in the example. They're saying, well, the people who succeed, they'll start pulling away. The people who fail, they're not going to be able to pull away. They're going to be getting caught up by whoever's chasing them. It does give an aside that says, unless the people who are pulling away decide to slow down to keep with the group. I like the fact that the mechanics are there, but they're not controlling everything. You know, if I succeed, I can still choose to be like, okay, well, I could get away, but I'm not going to. It really tells me that the authors have their priorities straight. And then the proportional skill success, I feel like this is mostly used when you have a large group of, honestly, like red shirts. They all have the same skill level. It's very simple. It's just you take the percentage skill, and then that's the percent of the people that succeed. The example in the book is like, okay, you got 100 soldiers trying to get across this rushing river. They have a 75 swim skill or athletic skill or whatever skill you want to use. Okay, 75% of them get across. Simple. You don't even have to roll. You just like, okay, that makes sense. You can just if you wanted to, you could get out a calculator real quick. All right, this many do it. Mm-hmm. Excellent tools for a GM. And in the book, it's kind of weirdly laid out. All of these different situations are given after the modifiers, so they're a little bit separated in the book. But I think you should be able to take them together and figure out, okay, all these different ways to handle rules and handle the rolling are able to work together. And before we move on, there's one thing I want to say. For augmenting skills, a lot of people hear about this augmenting skills, and they're like, wait a minute. So are you telling me that if any of my players can make a case for them being able to use this one skill to help this other skill, they essentially have an eternal bonus? It doesn't make much sense. To which I would say, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I let my players augment in silence. They do not have to tell me. They do not have to justify to me why they're augmenting the skill, why it fits. I'm here to roleplay with them. I don't care whether they win or lose. Just let them augment. It's fine. It's 20% of a skill. Most skills are probably anywhere from 40 to 80%. Like, we're not talking about massive gains here. And if your friend wants to cheat themselves out of an amazing experience, they shouldn't even be at the table.
Yeah. If you can't trust your table, that you've got bigger problems than worrying about this specific rule.
No, it's the rules' fault, not my players. Anyways, that's the tirade I wanted to go on about that.
What about differential rules?
Oh, you're right. I skipped them. They're my favorite part of the system.
Yeah, I was wondering.
The differential rules. So maybe you want a little bit more nuance when you have two people opposing one another. I said earlier, the opposed roles, basically somebody's going to win. If you tie, the tiebreaker is, okay, person who rolls higher. There is technically a 1 in 100 chance that you actually tie. Like, I roll 51 and you also roll a 51. This isn't in the book. I would just recommend whoever has the higher skill wins that. Or, because I don't really like slowing the game down, I would just narrate it as a tie. You know, oh man, they're locked in competition. Let's say you want a little bit more nuance there. We have the differential rules. Differential roll is mainly used in combat for Mythras. Of course, you have the freedom to use it for other things, It makes the most sense in combat. As an example, if I swing my sword at you and I roll a success, I'm gonna hit you. But if you're gonna parry with your sword and you roll a success, then you're also going to parry. It makes sense for both of us to succeed and be locked in our blades, right? I'm not going to take any damage because I parried successfully. You're not going to do any damage because, yes, you swung your sword successfully, but it was blocked, right? But let's say that you had a great sword and I had a dagger. That even though we both succeed there, my dagger's not going to block the damage from this great sword, but it will stop you from getting an even better upper hand. So that would stop a special effect, and we'll go over special effects in combat and everything in a later episode. But what that does is it allows both people to get what makes sense as a success from whatever their action was, but it still allows for the opposed rolls type thing where, okay, if you get a higher level of success, you're going to get more success, right?
Yeah.
Of course, with both opposed roll and differential rolls, if both people roll a failure or both people roll a fumble, then nothing's going to get done. In fact, if both people roll a fumble, then the GM should probably narrate something pretty interesting going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So differences in levels of success determines how many special effects you get. So it's like how successful you are at the thing.
Really important. A lot of people get confused with levels of success. They usually hear it in like a Warhammer context, where it's like, you count how, like, oh, you rolled a 70, I rolled a 30, so you get like 4 levels of success. In Mythras, it doesn't work that way. It's only counting critical, standard success, failure, and fumble. So the maximum levels of success you could have would be a critical versus a fumble. So that's only 3. Keeps it simple.
What was that statistic you had? It was
yes. A lot of people, they get worried when they hear, wait, if I roll success and they roll success, I don't do any damage. Wouldn't that mean that if really high skill levels are fighting, they're like nothing's going to happen? It makes sense to question that, but if you crunch the numbers, to 100% fighters fighting each other in 3 bouts of attack parry sequences, which is basically only 1 round, there is a 50% chance that somebody's going to have the upper hand by then. Someone's going to win a special effect. All right, so then if you take 2 rounds, then you have the 50% chance times the 50% chance. There's only that would make it a 75% chance that somebody has an upper hand at that point. So It sounds like it would take a long time, but really the math doesn't support that, what would sound like an intuitive conclusion.
Right.
Augment away, yes, correct.
Might suggest it sometimes with a specific passion, but for the most part, I leave it to the players and I don't need to know. There you go.
Excellent.
Nice to hear that, Andy.
I love talking about passions. We'll get to those in a future episode.
Okay. So skills are broken up into 2 types, standard and professional. And I'll go over standard skills first. Standard skills are common to everyone. They represent innate abilities and skills that most people employ on a regular basis from any walk of life. So everybody has all these skills. I think there's around 20 of them, maybe a little bit more.
I'll count real quick for you.
Sure. I'm guessing 22. But anyone can attempt these. An example of one would be brawn. And one of the things you can do with brawn is a contest of strength. So that could be 2 guys pushing each other, or arm wrestling, or pulling what do you call it? The rope?
Oh, tug of war.
Tug of war.
And you were right, 22.
22. Pretty good at remembering numbers sometimes. Anyway. So contest of strength. That is usually just a simple opposed roll. I roll my brawn and you roll your brawn, and we see who's stronger. That has changed though. If it's a human versus a giant, my 100 brawn is not going to be the same as the giant's 100 brawn, because we're going to compare our damage modifiers. So if my damage modifier, which is determined by my strength and size is super important, is, let's say, 3 steps smaller than the dragon's modifier, or 4 steps, I don't even know, then that means there's going to be 4 difficulty grades imposed on my effort. So it's basically impossible for me to win that, even though we've both got a 100 brawn. So it's more believable. These mechanics are supporting not necessarily realism, but like realism in your setting, you know, verisimilitude, believability, all of that.
Exactly. And I like that contest of strength is written there in the rules, not only just for that situation, but also to give GMs like, hey, this is a tool that you can use. One example we were talking about was the conceal skill, right? If I'm concealing a chariot, I need to hide it away. I need some brush to cover it or something to, make sure no one can see it. If a giant is concealing a chariot, they can just pick it up and put it behind their back.
Yeah. All these rules are kind of written with this common sense stuff in mind. You don't have, it's less like a let me inspect the handbook and see, you're not trying to catch people with these rules. You're trying to maybe simulate or emulate or whatever a world, believable characters. Yeah.
I've
all about that.
I've not seen a game of Mythras where someone's like, actually, GM, it says here that I have a plus 30 or something like that. It's like the rules pretty well encapsulate different situations, and they give the GM enough tools, like you were saying, emulate.
Absolutely.
Professional skills. All right. Oh, one thing I meant to say, for every single skill, both professional and for the standard skills, the book gives you examples of what does a failure look like? What does a fumble look like? What does a critical look like? I feel like most time, a success makes sense. We know kind of how a success works. But sometimes it's difficult if you're not given an example, like, what exactly is the skill doing? I really appreciate that in the book. Anyway, so professional skills. There are a lot of professional skills in Mythras, but don't worry, you're not going to have to learn all of them. In fact, your character themselves, I believe from character creation, can maximum only have 7 professional skills. And that's how you can differentiate between characters, right? There's things that you get from specialization, training, and experience, right? You'll pick them up from your culture career or during gameplay from finding a teacher that can teach you how this new skill works, right? These skills give you access to completely new capabilities, or they may even be kind of like an upgrade from a standard skill. And every single magic skill in the game is treated as a professional skill. I think that's a good idea. We'll go into kind of like setting and modifying the skill list later, but even if you have a very magical setting, unless literally every single person in the world has access to the same kind of magic, it's better for you to leave that magic as a professional skill, because not everybody can do it, right? Just like Elf Hunter was saying, that's what the standard skills are for. Anyways, back to the professional skills. I have some examples here. So, lockpicking in lore. Great example of it's a new capability. I don't care how much you try to pick a lock, if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't even have a semblance idea of what you're doing, it's going to be extremely difficult. Honestly, why are you even rolling at that point? What about lore about dragons or lore about a far off country? If I've never heard of that country, I'm not going to be able to think of anything about the country, right? I mean, I've heard of, I don't know, Uzbekistan. I know nothing about that country. I know the name. But what about these upgrades from standard skills? Yes, acrobatics. If you are an acrobat, then you can use those skills to dodge incoming blows, jump out of the way of arrows in a way that's much more controlled than someone who's not trained like that. So there's the evade skill. That's how you jump out of the way of arrows. But if I'm an acrobat, I can somersault. I can, was it when you like handstand and you like cartwheel? That's what I'm thinking of. You can get out of the way, and you will be landing on your feet. Or someone who's not trained, they're going to land on their arm, on their back. They're going to be prone. Commerce, that's another skill. Maybe, if you're trying to, bargain with somebody, you can use your influence skill. That's a standard skill. But me, I'm a merchant. I know what I'm doing. So I can use my commerce skill. And as later on in the rules we'll see it, I'll have an easier time getting an advantage in these sorts of negotiations. And of course, magic. I have right here invocation and shaping. That's for sorcery. Invocation, and this is kind of getting into magic, but invocation is when you're actually using the magic. Am I going to succeed? Whereas shaping is almost sort of like a resource to fuel how strong my magic is. It'll make more sense as we go into the magic chapters, but that's just some examples of the professional skills. And once again, all these skills, they have examples of a success, a critical, a fumble, a failure, so that you're not left as a game master high and dry. How do I describe this? Or even as we advocate as players to describe their failures and successes, they'll have something of an idea of like, okay, what makes the most sense according to the rulebook. It's not like, oh, well, I rolled success on my athletics. I think I should, run a little faster versus someone else. Like, oh, well, I rolled an success on my athletics. I think I should win the race.
Yeah, those examples in the book are really good. You're not beholden to them, because the situation may call for something a little bit different, but they are good examples.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And last but not least, if you want to go to the final slide.
Sir.
Modifying. Yes. So, as far as I'm aware, every single setting book for Mythras modifies the skill list in some sort of way, whether it's the standard skill list or the professional skills available. And that should tell you, as a player, this is how it's supposed to work. Right? And these are some things you can think about when you are, because you really should, when you are modifying the skill list. If you're playing a game that, hey, actually, I don't think anyone's going to be speaking in different languages. We're not going to be world travelers. It's not going to be a big part of my game. Okay, get rid of the language skills. You don't need them. It's not going to help your game at all. Or maybe it's very specific. We're going to be going through, maybe it's a time travel game. So, I know Greek. I don't know historic Greek. So now you're not only having Greek as a language, but you're making more Greek languages and Greek from antiquity versus modern day. So you're adding more skills to be more specific. Other things, obviously, in a modern day, people know how to read for the most part. Whereas in the Mythras professional skills, there's a literacy skill. You can take that out. It's fine. Everyone knows how to read, mostly in the modern day, right? That's just an example of how you can really pick and choose how these skills work and figure out, what is going to be the best for my game. Because a lot of people, they'll say, oh, well, what if my players choose these skills? I don't know if they're going to find them useful. Then just take it out. If you as the GM and the players all think that this skill is not going to be useful, just take it out. It's really
how the game's supposed to go.
It's supposed to be modified. The skill list is.
It's not going to upset the balance of things. There's not classes to balance or things like that. It's just list of skills that match your setting.
I did want to give an example. I think it's a very interesting and evocative skill from Mythic Britain. It's the superstition skill. So
Yeah.
by putting this skill in the game, it's a standard skill. Everybody has superstition. So by putting that in the game, you're setting up this world where it's like, okay, you as a player, maybe you're a materialist. Nothing happens unless the chemistry says so. Nothing happens unless right? But your character in the game, they're superstitious. What level of superstition they are, I mean, the skill will show you how much that is. But it's excellent because in that game, superstition does not necessarily have to be in certain things. A Christian priest can be extremely superstitious, constantly letting out small prayers and doing small rituals so they have the blessings of God upon them. Versus a pagan may be extremely superstitious, but in a completely different way, always seeing omens and the number of things that are appearing or in the animals that cross their path. Excellent way for just one skill added to the skill list to just completely change the game.
Oh yeah. I'll say real quick that's why when people say like, "Oh, Mythras is by default is like a ancient fantastical, like an ancient fantasy Rome kind of thing." Like, yeah, that's the example setting used in the core rulebook, but it can be anything. You sub out the skills, like you might have to think about how different things work with your table, but the way it's designed is to be modified. Biggest thing to worry about, I think, is if your setting has firearms, you got to think about how to do that, but that's another thing. But yeah, designed to be modified to support your role play in whatever setting you like.
Exactly. All right, well, that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. Anything you wanted to add?
That's about it. Let's if you guys have questions, comments, let at it. We'll go ahead and end the VOD right here. See y'all.
Bye, VOD viewers. All right, what comments do we got here? Let's see. We had Bacon saying hello. G-Funk Rescue Crew. I love that name so much.
Did you hear the story behind that?
I have no idea what the story is. I just love the name.
We'll see if he shares it here, if he's still here.
Let's see. Grognard guy promised. He said he's going to come watch it later. He said it. We have it on record. Yeah, we looked at Andy's thing earlier about augmenting. Hey, Roland buddy. Nice to see you.
That boy.
Would you be swag out? Yeah, I know a lot of people in the Mythras Discord. They discuss augmenting, and they talk about, is it good to let them augment a lot? Is it good? How should we handle it? I will preach. I will evangelize. I don't know if there's another word for that, but just
proclaim.
Yes, I would just let the players augment, especially if it's with their passions. Like, dude, their character is passionate about this thing. If they think it applies, it applies. It's their character. Get players who are not going to try to win. They're just going to try to roleplay their character. And they think.
I would advocate that as well. Do not ask for permission to augment. Just do it. The table should be trusting each other, right? And we're talking about role playing here. If your goal is to role play, then you'd be cheating yourself if you are just trying to add a bonus every time.
I think you're cheating yourself by stopping the entire game to discuss whether or not that bonus applies.
Yeah. Ooh, he's gonna get an extra 12%. I'm gonna be honest with you. I do not care. Do not care.
You touched on something that was good though, talking about if your goal is to roleplay. I think Mythras is a great role-playing game. It's best played when you're trying to role-play. If you're trying to play Mythras more like a war game, it can be done. It's very, very what's the word? Robust.
Yeah.
If that's your goal, then I completely understand why you're like, oh well, they can't add this all the time, or they can't. I should, as the game master, be deciding whether they get to add it or not, right? It's not my kind of game, but I can definitely see that point of view.
Yeah. I prefer it for role playing. If I was just more into the classic adventure game, dungeon crawling kind of thing, I would probably like. I can see how Mythras would be satisfying, with a different resolution and the mechanics and all that.
Combat, especially.
Combat, especially. But I'd probably just prefer the low resolution, like OSR kind of game if I was going for that. I could be like, okay, this is taking a while. Let's just, if it's out of character, let's just use simple rules. But if I'm role playing in character with a bunch of people I trust and we're all on the same page, then I really love these mechanics supporting the things that I'm trying to do. That's me.
Preaching to the choir.
I don't know if you feel the same on that, but yeah.
It looks like we had a quiet peanut gallery today. I have no more comments.
Yeah, I know this section was longer. We got into mechanics a bit.
Are you telling me that the skills section of the skill-based game is long?
Yeah, robust. It gives you the support you need. Our goal isn't necessarily to teach all the mechanics with this series, but hopefully you see how these rules support a world, support a character, support skills and actions and all of that.
Yeah, you can see how the mechanics, they support the roleplay without being overbearing.
Yeah. You want to end it here?
I'm good to go. Thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you everyone for watching. Y'all take care.